Hey, so a few days ago, one of my clients, she's a first time founder, needed some help with prioritizing features. I gave her a crash course and I decided to share it with you all. So let's get started. The most basic thing is to figure out what you want and the time frame within you want it. There's like your grand vision, but there's also the next step within a week, within 2 weeks, within a month, a quarter, whatever. And you'd be surprised how many people don't take the time to define the answer to this question. And this question is the filter through which we can decide or evaluate our prioritization. Without it, we're basically just throwing feature ideas in the air. And generally, there are more options, but for the sake of this crash course, you can either think of efforts to get more customers, marketing, viral features, whatever you want to add, or features that will make you more money from the existing customers. They will spend more, they will stay longer, they will churn less, or you will reduce the cost to support each of them. And I like to think of this lane as improving the product. And the cool thing about it is that I think eventually it gets you more customers because if you build a very good product, you start getting word of mouth, retention goes up. Any effort you put in here, for example, marketing, your marketing return on investment will go higher. So that's why usually I like to focus on this lane, but it's not a one size fits all. I'm just sharing my thoughts here. Obviously, sometimes we need to focus on this. And a few concepts that we should be familiar with before we jump into the actual prioritization. Theory of constraints. So this will help us to decide where we want to focus. We can do only one thing. Think that you only have one developer or one builder, or you can do one thing. And theory of constraints will help us identify where we want to focus. And think of your business, your company, your product, your startup, whatever you're working on as a system. And each system has one component which is the most impactful component on the performance of the system. It's limiting its growth. What we want to do is identify the system. For example, your salespeople don't have enough calls, or your salespeople have full calendars, but they're not converting enough. These are two different constraints. One is not enough call bookings, one is not enough call closing and conversions. Each of these would require different solutions. But from product point of view, we have the same things. Maybe users are not completing onboarding. Maybe users are not adding friends. Maybe users are not posting photos. Maybe they're not using the product daily, whatever. There are a million of things that we can choose to focus on. So we want to identify what's the one piece which is limiting our constraint and focus on that. And once we solve this one, a new piece will be the biggest constraint. This is an endless cycle. So we want to keep focusing on these and identifying these because solving the biggest constraint is the biggest return on investment on your time and effort and money. That's the biggest thing which is limiting your business. Focusing on anything else is not as high return on investment. This is popularized by Eli Goldratt, is a famous author that wrote about it, and I highly encourage you dive into that. The next concept is appetite. Sorry, oops, eventually we'll get here. Perfect. And appetite is basically a budget. How much time, money, resources we want to put into solving the problem we identified in the previous phase. So let's say salespeople don't have enough calls. Do you want to put $1 million to fix this? 50, 500? Like, what's our effort? 5 people, 100 people? What's our budget for that? And once we define the budget, we create boundaries, right? These are constraints for our solutions. And then we can basically start asking ourselves, how can we onboard users better with one developer and 1 week? And we can start making a list of possible bits or features. Nobody knows for certain if a feature will work or not, so we call it bits. And we want to make sure that the list is rough ideas, but a sketch or a paragraph at least, because what you might describe as getting more sales calls for a salesperson means one thing, for an SDR is another thing, for a product person is a third thing, for the guy who's running the ad, that's a fourth thing. And this is a very, very fertile ground for confusion. We want to make sure that we have a mutual understanding of what's the feature we're talking about. The other thing is thinking about risks and second order effects. All right. So if we'll run a campaign, $1 million campaign, book a sales call with us, and we didn't increase our sales team, there's a chance suddenly they will be swamped and they will have too many calls that they cannot handle. Another effect might be that they would be selling like crazy, but the actual product cannot be delivered on time. So I want to take a moment to think about what are some effects that might happen due to the features we want to build. And the last one, the last high level concept before we dive into prioritization is certainty. So let's say you chose a feature or you think of building a feature. Let's say chat. Everybody wants a chat these days. So you're claiming that if my app will have a chat, users will chat with each other, it will increase the value of the system, they will come in every day, they won't leave the system, whatever. How certain are you of this statement? How certain are you that users will chat with one another and that it will result in them not leaving? And let's say you'll say you're 50% sure. Based on what are you sure? Is that a belief? Is that industry benchmarks? Is this hard data from experiments you did? And there must be a correlation between your certainty and your appetite. All right. If you're 5% certain, would you invest $1 million on this feature? That's subjective. I wouldn't. And if you want to increase the level of certainty, what's a small experiment you can do to increase it? That's one thing. So thinking micro bits also, like can you reduce the feature to make it a bit smaller and figure it out? All right, so we have our three main concepts: theory of constraints and identify the limiting step, appetite, what's our budget, how much time, resources, money we want to throw at the problem, and certainty, how certain are we that whatever we want to focus on and solve will give us the impact we have, and is it in correlation to our budget? What we do in this point, and there are many, many frameworks for prioritization. I'm just going to show you one. And this one would be a simple one, which is impact and confidence. All right. The reason I'm not putting effort here is because we should decide the effort on the appetite phase. We should decide over here, not down here. And the cool thing is that we want to have better sharing of reports, which is our number one bit basically. The impact will be high on improving retention, for example. Let's say that's our desired outcome. The level of confidence we have is high. And the reason we know it's high is because we spoke to existing users. All of them said they want it. All of them said they need to send it to their clients, blah, 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 whatever. Or we ran a test and we gave custom reports or manual reports to one client and it was amazing. A faster app loading time. So the impact would be low and the confidence we have of it improving the retention is low. And some sort of backend capability, I don't know, like adding more admins, adding a second admin. And the impact would probably be medium or low. And we don't know with high certainty if it will improve or not. So this is an example to show you how we can run quickly through this framework. And it takes way faster once you do it once or twice. And we run it through the impact and confidence prioritization. But so there's impact and confidence, impact, confidence, and effort. RISE also adds reach, blah, blah, blah. There are many, many frameworks which I left out over here. And sorry, all right. Eventually, this is what we went through quickly, like a quick recap. Know what you want to accomplish, find the biggest constraint, allocate a budget or an appetite that you want to put in this, list the possible bits or things that you can take, actions you can take to solve it. What's the correlation between the level of certainty you have and the budget you want to invest in it? Is there a good level of correlation, or is the budget is way higher or way lower than your confidence? Compare the options you have using one of the prioritization metrics. And once you have a winning bit, spec it out in detail, plan it out, make sure that everybody who's going to touch it knows more or less what's going to be, and they have enough information to move forward and to ask questions and go out and build it. I created a template for you based on this quick video that you can actually use. I hope it will be helpful for you. I'll share it in the link in the description. Let me know, what are your challenges with prioritization? How do you face it? How do you go about prioritizing features for your startup and company? And what I could do better with this crash course. And again, there are many ways to do better prioritization. This was just like a quick crash course I created, and I thought you would find value in it. Ciao.